Okay. So it's my pleasure to welcome on behalf of the Mostra, the directors and the actors of the program we just seen now in the Orizzonti sidebar. For Palácios de Pena, I'm going from my right, from Palácios de Pena, the producer, Naso Ceca, and the directors, Schmidt and Gabriel Abrantes. And for Snow Canon, the director, Mati Diop, and actors and the two protagonists of the film, Nilaya Bal and Noor Maburak. I hope I said it right. So this is not just a welcome, but it's a heartfelt thank you to all of you for your for being so bold and undaring in your filmmaking, because it's exactly what we need and what we like to feature in Orizzonti. And so this program was just a perfect example of what we are looking for, and we are so happy so that your films are here. I'm not supposed to be the one asking questions. I mean, the question should be more for journalists and for our audience members. So you just have to raise your hand and your voice and ask your questions. Otherwise, since this is usually not happening, I will start this thing. And I will ask, following the order of the program, I would like to start with a question for Mati about this place. It seems that this isolation where the characters are placed was the element to make these two loneliness meet somehow. I was wondering how you choose this place and how much this was somehow improvised, but just being there and just letting these two characters interact somehow one with the other. You should push the button to make the microphone work. The big one. That's it.
Ok. Je vais parler en français. C'était prévu.
It's okay. Okay.
I'm sorry.
French.
I will speak French.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
Talking French.
En fait, ce projet est né d'une rencontre aussi avec une productrice qui m'a proposé
a meeting with a producer that asked me to realize this short after viewing the former film, and in this moment we are writing a new piece, and it was an adaptation of a romance in Norway, and it tells the history and friendship between two adolescents in the middle of the ice in an extraordinary environment. This short film led to the writing of this film. We maintained the same environment and the relationship. And this relationship and this environment is magnetic. And the fact to concentrate the action in a chalet is a way to maintain a relationship, a very pure relationship, and to concentrate on the temporality in a closed environment. It is perfect. It plays with open environment and landscapes that are focused on a nature that is wonderful, but also worrying for what happens in the film. This project was suffered. Well, what is surprising is that this short film was a first approach, a first step towards the feature film. And realizing it put into question a desire that was present during the writing phase and during the editing phase of my film. And I think that the desire that was strong entered the creation of the film and influenced the idea of the past of many years on this kind of writing. So it worked.
And this film of yours comes after a few short films you did before, which were working within different genres. I mean, Atlantique was very different. I know that you have a project you're working on a documentary on your uncle, Gabriel Diop, Mombeti. I think this is peculiar for your generation of filmmakers to not feel that you are a documentary filmmaker, an experimental filmmaker, or a feature filmmaker. How much is this true, and how much is still an attempt of yours to try different formulas and different genres, looking forward for the one that you will feel more close to your...
Atlantique est considéré comme un documentaire. Moi, je pense que cette notion est pas aussi précise. Je pense que c'est vraiment un film qui circule entre le documentaire et la fiction.
It is a halfway between documentary and fiction, and the language of the film and the language of the film speaks of a real basis of a documentary that passes through the fiction. And so Atlantic is not a documentary, it is a film that I consider to be epical. It is a fictional film, a narration film, and really the first time I was writing a screenplay with characters and a precise direction. It was in pure fiction. I realized a short film between Atlantique and Canon. I think that the form can be adapted to narration. I never wonder about the form before, because documentary or fiction are determined by the adventure of the project.
And Gabriel and Daniel, would you like to say something to start with something that is not there anymore, which was the previous title of the film, the title that we used when we were seeing which seems to be more overtly political somehow. And when you switched finally to Palácios de Pena, I was wondering if this overtly more political and actual aspect of the film related to what's happening in Portugal in the last month, it was somehow a concern of you, like to remove this overtly political possible approach to the film.
I mean, titles for us change very often in all the films. Like History of Mutual Respect also went through a few titles.
But probably can I mention what was the previous title?
Yeah.
It was supposed to be The Last Generation of Portugal. So that's how we call it for quite a long time.
And that was one in like a very long list of a lot of titles that we came up with. Some are from the cell phone messages but what we thought, it's not so much to make a distance from the political aspect of the film, it's just assuming that that's already very present in the film, and that it would be a sort of banal reiteration or forcing that reading onto the film. And also, I think the main inspiration for that first title was films like Birth of a Nation, or films that work very peculiarly in terms of nationalist idea of cinema, which is something that today doesn't make so much sense. So it was sort of a play on that. But we decided that it was a bit too forced or imposing on the audience. What do you think, Dan?
And you both, not just for this film, but also for other projects of yours that you have with, you often work with other artists. I mean, I don't know if in all your works, but in most of the works, I think you share your authorship very often. In the case of the film you're doing together, in the case of this film in particular, how you work together and how you split your tasks, your responsibilities, your choices, how does this come along?
Well, we started as friends, but friends through working, I suppose. And I don't know if there's a clear division of what we each do. Gabriel definitely does more on the producing side of things, but as far as directing, we're very similar in overlap. And it's something we're still learning quite a bit about. So for us, it's now very interesting to take on more than just two of us, but involve other people in our family. And that could be actors or other creators or editors. But up to this point, we've very much done the writing, directing, editing, very much together, overlapped. Also, a difference would be that Gabriel speaks Portuguese, and I don't. So there's a sort of translation process that I think actually has some creative qualities to it, but also things get lost. So.
And then, I don't know, I think in a more like technical or practical aspect, it's when we're writing the script and Daniel's in New York and I'm in Lisbon, it's like we have conversations and Skype and go switching, sending each script back and forth. And then with editing as well, we send the project back and forth and keep editing that way. One person does one edit, another person does another, and we just go switching. I also think the films deal a lot with this question of identity, or what's a national identity, or post-national identity, or globalized identity, and also in terms of like our desire to work together and not, I guess, promote this idea of an individual filmmaker. It's sort of trying to make the relationship to the identity of the filmmaker a little more flexible, as in it's not our pure expression of like our poetic vision, but something that's more about discourse and our relationship and how we can discuss topics and ideas and build a film more around that rather than out of this pure notion of the author.
Yeah, with the non-professional actors and also with our crew and our family who are all around here at Nacho, it's very much involving people who might know better or differently than us and bring something to it that is not, basically everyone we work with is not film industry or professional actors, and we don't have anything against that. I think we'd like to engage with that, but it's very much drawing on other people's experiences and previous roles that they've had and lifestyles. So it's not so much like an authorship type thing, but more.
Yeah, like a good example of that, I think, is the two actors, the Moorish characters who are played by, this is a bit lost in translation, but by Brazilians who are currently living in Lisbon. And so it also has all these twists of like who's representing who, are they representing themselves, or has time changed that now the Brazilians are the Moors of 1200 or 1700 in Portugal? And yeah, twisting all these relationships is something that we're interested in. And our last film, History of Mutual Respect, Nacho produced it as well as did the camera for it, and he had some experience with shooting video and all that, but being a director of photography of a 16mm film, it was a first time, and we're very interested in this sort of amateur quality, or giving the possibility of these non-actors bringing something else to the table, or when Nacho films as well, not already being formatted in like this sort of classic rules.
You, both you and Mati as well, you did some film studies, but then, as far as I can tell, I mean, not having been in a film school myself, but having seen tons of films coming from film school, it seems that you go against almost anything that is usually taught taught in a film school. I was asking you also because of your very young age, so I think these studies you did, they're quite close. I mean, they're just maybe a few years ago. How was that experience, and how these studies you did allowed you to look for your own way of making films instead of probably the one that was teach you?
Well, I studied art initially, and I consider myself an artist in terms of it's very flexible what I'm doing. It's not filmmaking or painting or something. It's more ideas. And then it's very funny that we were programmed together as well, because we went to the same school and we're good friends. And I think our films have a lot of similarities, which I think made for a very interesting program. But I think we reacted to the second school we went to, which was a fine arts cinema school, in a very reactionary way, or trying to sort of go against the grain. Both of us were in and out of the school. And I think it's good. I think it's good to go to school sometimes just to, and I think Daniel had the same experience at film school as well, of having an impulse to react against. So I think that's maybe why they're not so similar to other films.
talking about collaboration and family, it was funny, I don't know if it was a mistake of our speaker or if it was your request, but you have been announced as not with your name and surname, but as mutual respect when we introduced the film. And I know you're not simply a producer of the film, you've also been involved as really in the creative process and doing the camera. Can you, Nacho, tell us a bit how this franchise, what this means, how big is the family, what's your role in it, and how it happened that finally someone is the director and someone is not?
But my background is related to the visual arts and production, and I do curatorial work for probably 15 years. And it's a great opportunity and then growing my background, to be involved as on the same level I be involved until now with a visual artist. And I think it's very linked to the creation process and the production process as well. And at the same time, in its case, they give me the opportunity to be involved on the process of the creation, which is what I make until the days of today with the visual artists. And at the same time, we work, mutual respect is is a crew, another people be involved, or Marta, or Joanna, or Daniela. And we work together. We share all the time the possibilities to make the better as possible the things happens.
One technical question for both. First, I would like to thank Matti for showing us some film, which film, analog film, photographic film on screen, because it doesn't, most of all with short films nowadays, with our short film program, most of the film are shot digitally and projected digitally. It looks great, like we just saw with Palácios de Pena, but it's great sometimes that a filmmaker that is probably supposed nowadays to shoot digitally and to project a film digitally had a beautiful, I think, 35mm copy we saw today. And so the first technical question is how you went for this and how much maybe other people were trying to convince you to not do it anymore because it's out of fashion, because it's too expensive, or because of whatever reason.
Jusqu'à présent, les courts-métrages que j'ai réalisés, je les faisais en numérique parce que je faisais l'image moi-même, que j'avais pas envie de trop m'embarrasser avec.
I didn't want to use this technique because most of all it was a way of directing and editing. It was a documentary technique with a lightness, a technique lightness, and I didn't want to use it. It wasn't my priority, and I think that desire of the film came with the writing of the film and having a less impulsive way of approaching my work. And again, I have no certitude about these two ways of creating a film, because it depends on the project and the time we need, and the lightness or not of the keep, and it is impossible to think about it apart from the film, and it has a strong image liveliness and a texture. I think so. I think that it is a film that was to be written this way.
Synchronized sound that I think you use in most of your work together, and in this one as well, not probably as much as in other films. So I really want to know about how you go for that, because it's definitely not just a constraint. You clearly choose to work with post-synchronized sound. And can you just say something about this and about how you work with this sound in post-production, which is, I think, is very relevant element in the effect that the film has.
You want to say something? Sure. Yeah, it's both a creative thing in terms of the actual creation in making the film. because it allows us to deal with these non-professional actors and the scenarios and the situations and locations we put ourselves in a very flexible way. We can speak to the actors and we can speak to each other while the actual filming is taking place, and this is very liberating for us, and also makes our crew smaller so that we can get into, you know, more difficult spaces. But it also is a creative choice when it comes to the post-production, because it allows us to really shape and sculpt the performances and the entire sound world of the film. And you were saying that maybe this wasn't all post-synced, but it's all completely dubbed, yeah, the whole thing. And we just really, I think we really enjoy the creative process of working with this sound in this way. And it creates some distances and some new dynamics that we play with in different ways. It's not always the same approach to each thing. But yes, it's both when we're making it and after.
And talking about acting, so I have also a question for the far side of the table to me. But the question goes through Mati first, I would say, because you're an actress as well. So I was wondering if you were thinking about having playing in this film of yours, and how then you were looking for the two protagonists and how they interact. And this question then goes to them, how they interact with the script and with the situation you built by being in this place and standing. So you were not thinking about playing the film yourself?
I wanted to play Vanina's part, but I was too old.
Okay. And I was wondering if they want to add something about how they, at which point they enter the project and how they feel like to cooperate in building the film the way you did it with the characters. I don't know if they have the headphones. Okay. I don't know if the translation is arrived in which language.
I guess the question is how I felt interacting with Mati.
With the characters and with this script that I think you started with.
I guess if I'm going to give any comment, when Mati asked me to act in the film, I was pretty surprised. I live in the west coast of the United States, and it was kind of a long way to go. But I was very flattered and happy. And I was aware of the fact that Mati had done a good bit of acting herself. And there was a point when I had to make a decision how I was going to prepare for this, because I'm not an actor. And I sort of made a decision not to watch Mati act in 35 Shots of Rum, for example, before doing it, because I felt that I wanted to be able to interact with her character and not be too burdened by how she would do it herself. That being said, it was interesting for us to work together because we're close in age, and it was, but it was a really great experience in terms of understanding that dialogue between an actor and a director, I guess.
I actually met, j'ai rencontré Nour
I met
à Paris.
Nour Gabriel in Paris. And just to talk general about films, and originally, at the beginning, I wanted to have an American actress that had a true technique. I thought about the idea of working because it was the first time I was writing a script, and I created a true fiction work, and I wanted a true American Hollywood actress. For example, icons that we have in these scenes, and it was very complicated for what production is concerned. And after writing the script we were inspired by two people, a young woman that, and after that I started to think rapidly. I often thought about her, and also the remembering about her voice. And at the beginning, when I started to talk about Noor for this character, I wondered about the musicality of the film that was very important, the voice, the language. And I knew that they are artists, and she is an artist. She's a musician, and she has a lot of fantasy and imagination that she could turn into the script. And I thought that it was interesting for her to cooperate as an actress in my film.
Okay, here's the question. Go, please, Ben.
Gabriel and Daniel. Kind of going off of Sergio's question about the political or the politics of the film, I'm curious as to whether ghosting is a political metaphor.
I think it has to do in terms of power play, or if I had a blackboard, I could draw a diagram of what ghosting is. But I think the whole film revolves around this idea of when people start having some sort of notion that they can utilize their bodies to have power over other people. And ending on that is very much about that. And then right after it, the girls talk about another girl and how she's very racist. But it's all a little bit twisted up. And the main point of ghosting was, introducing this sort of idea of corporal power play, and also because of identity switches. You think you're with someone, but then you're not, you're with someone else. And I think, yes, the film should be some sort of ghosting with a really sort of loud scream that's part of your own reflection. I think the creepiest thing about ghosting is that you actually see yourself mixed with the other person who you think is fucking you. So that idea is, I think, what we're talking about. I mean, it's very funny that I went to high school with Noor, and that I went to college with Mati, and as we were talking about this family of mutual respect that's here, I think it's all about family and how you can see yourself with somebody else in terms of sharing a culpability or understanding that everything everybody else does is also part of you in some sort of way, and that you have to share responsibility for that.
If there are no other questions, I really thank you for your attention. I thank most of all our guests for being here at this press conference, but most of all for having shown us your
Thank you very much for
films.
having us all
Thank
here.
You.
Thank you.
Thank you.